Figure it out yourself. That's what my darling wife Genevieve, a veritable pioneer in the burgeoning field of extreme personal growth, bellowed, her voice a melodious crescendo over the symphony of a gunned engine. I, Arthur, a perfectly well-adjusted, if slightly adhesive, 34-year-old structural engineer, found myself dramatically marooned in a gas station parking lot near Windsor, Wyoming, 200 miles from our humble abode in Crestwood, Colorado, and approximately 1,000,000 light years from any semblance of marital normalcy. In the back seat of her sedan, her esteemed personal development coaches and biological co-conspirators, Beatrice and Clara, performed a flawless choral arrangement of cackles, apparently witnessing the peak of human comedic achievement. My name is Arthur, and this, dear reader, was my impromptu journey of self-discovery, courtesy of my loving family. For 8 glorious years, I'd been blissfully tethered to Genevieve, a woman whose mere presence was enough to guide my every step, including the tying of my shoelaces, a complex knot, I assure you, requiring her dedicated expertise. This particular expedition was billed as a romantic marital retreat to her cousin's nuptials, a quaint gathering of 4 souls sharing gas money and the collective joy of overpriced hotel rooms. Yet, even my famously unsuspecting nature registered a faint tremor in the fabric of reality. Genevieve, the master of the innocent rearview mirror glance, engaged in an ongoing whispered national-level secret meeting with her sisterly band, their hushed tones suggesting matters of grave international importance. When I, ever the keen observer, inquired about these clandestine affairs, she'd flash that incandescent, "Nothing to see here, babe, just sister stuff" smile, a smile so radiant it could blind a man to the impending apocalypse. Oh, if only my gut had possessed a megaphone instead of a mere whisper. We halted for a strategic refueling 1 hour outside of Windsor. I, ever the dutiful husband, embarked on a perilous quest for coffee and a moment of quiet introspection, i.e., the men's room. Upon my triumphant return, I discovered my chariot already purring, its occupant seated with an unsettling air of smug accomplishment. Genevieve, with a bizarrely beatific grin, lowered her window. "Get in, my love," I chirped, already anticipating the warmth of her presence. "Actually," she announced with the gravitas of a queen delivering a royal decree, "we've collectively decided you require an immediate and intensive course in independence." Beatrice, leaning forward like a gargoyle on a cathedral, added, "You're always so terribly clingy, Arthur," following Genevieve around like a particularly lost, fluffy puppy. Clara, the younger yet equally enlightened sibling, chimed in, "Consider it an adventure." My car keys, or rather, my house keys, since my trusty truck was enjoying a well-deserved nap in our Crestwood driveway, felt suspiciously heavy in my palm. "This isn't amusing," I pleaded, a man-child momentarily forgetting the gravity of the situation. "Whatever elaborate charade this is, kindly cease." Genevieve's grin, now stretched to truly alarming proportions, revealed the dark truth. "It's not a charade, dear. It's a prank. You're always so dreadfully serious, Arthur. Learn to experience the profound joy of self-deprecating laughter." And with that, her foot met the accelerator in a most dramatic fashion, leaving me to contemplate the fleeting nature of taillights and the sudden, chilling intimacy of the Wyoming wind. My wallet, my phone, and a rapidly escalating sense of existential dread were my only companions. The October wind, seemingly a connoisseur of poetic irony, sliced through my inadequate jacket, carrying the distinct perfume of impending snow. I attempted to contact Genevieve's phone, straight to voicemail, Jessica's number, an identical disheartening result. Clara, bless her heart, had shown remarkable foresight months ago by preemptively blocking my number after some entirely insignificant marital squabble. It was then, standing amidst the fading glory of a Midwestern sunset, that the stark reality crystallized. This wasn't some fleeting jest destined for a quick resolution. Oh no, this was Operation Unplugged, and its primary objective was the systematic deconstruction of my pathetic dependency for the sisters' entertainment. This was, in essence, a masterclass in tough love from a distance of 200 miles. I retreated into the gas station, a beacon of fleeting hope. "Good sir," I addressed the clerk with newfound gravitas, "pray tell, what is the fare for a passage to Crestwood via a public conveyance?" The clerk, bless his pragmatic soul, merely blinked. "Buddy, did you just step out of the last century? We only have horse-drawn carriages here. Greyhound stops in Windsor, though, about 40 miles east." Apparently, my adventure had just been upgraded to a micro-marathon. My journey into the realm of self-sufficiency began with a $60 taxi ride to Windsor, a princely sum I could ill afford, but one necessary for my metamorphosis. The 14-hour bus ride back to Crestwood was a veritable practical survey of the human condition and, regrettably, foot odor. I sat there, a solitary figure of contemplation, ceaselessly checking my phone, optimistically anticipating an apology text, perhaps a panicked call lamenting that they'd gone too far. But alas, the digital silence was deafening. Around midnight, somewhere near Casper, Wyoming, the epiphany struck me with the force of a particularly blunt hammer. This wasn't about teaching me independence. This was about humiliation. This was about demonstrating my precise standing in their exclusive sisterhood of superiority. I replayed every instance of my meek capitulation, every swallowed insult, every insincere apology. The worst part wasn't the physical abandonment. It was the chilling certainty that this entire elaborate theatrical production had been meticulously plotted for weeks, perhaps months, them huddling in Beatrice's chic apartment, plotting my liberation and chuckling at my cluelessness. I'd met Genevieve 9 years ago at a job site. She was an environmental consultant, her sharp wit and captivating gaze making me feel like I was the only person in the room. But her sisters were a different story. Beatrice, 2 years older, a marketing executive, always had an opinion, always subtly undermining me. Clara, the youngest at 28, still adrift, but never short on attitude. From the beginning, they treated me like an interloper, making inside jokes at family dinners, planning vacations without me. "They're just protective," Genevieve would always say, but they never warmed. If anything, they grew colder after we married. Beatrice would remark on how I held Genevieve back from her adventurous spirit. Clara would roll her eyes if I offered to fix something around their apartments. "Not everything needs a man to solve it," she'd sneer. I started noticing other things. Genevieve's constant texting with her sisters, the last-minute changes to our plans because of some manufactured crisis of theirs. Last year, she forgot our anniversary helping Clara move. The year before, she missed my birthday dinner because Beatrice was having boyfriend drama. Family comes first, she'd always say, and I respected that, but I was supposed to be family too. The warning signs during the drive to Wyoming now screamed at me. Their insistence I leave my truck at home, Genevieve booking the hotel room solely in her name, Beatrice's jokes about my lack of spontaneity. "Remember when you used to be fun?" Clara had taunted from the back seat, "before you got so domestic and boring." I'd laughed it off, but it stung. I worked 60-hour weeks, managed our home, planned our lives. I thought that was what a good husband did. Standing there, watching the sun dip below the Montana hills, I realized my mistake wasn't in being a good husband, but in choosing the wrong wife. By the time the bus, my chariot of introspection, lumbered into Crestwood at 8 a.m., my decision was made. I hailed a cab home, half expecting Genevieve's sedan to be triumphantly parked in the driveway. It wasn't. The house was exactly as we'd left it, empty. I called in sick to work, sat at the kitchen table, and then, in a moment of unprecedented rebellion, embarked upon a forensic examination of Genevieve's personal effects, not out of suspicion, but out of a desperate archaeological need to unearth the true identity of the woman I'd once vowed to cherish. Her laptop, a fortress of passwords, yielded to a carelessly scrawled note in her laptop bag containing the elusive key. And there it was. Group chats between her and her sisterly co-conspirators, stretching back months. Screenshots of our text conversations, adorned with gleeful, laughing emojis like ancient hieroglyphs of my marital demise. Photos of me, blissfully asleep, captioned with such endearing sentiments as "dead to the world as usual" and "zero awareness." But it was the Operation Unplugged thread that finally imploded my remaining illusions. Beatrice, the evil mastermind, had floated the idea first. We should totally ditch him somewhere and see how long it takes him to figure out how to get home. Clara, ever the enthusiastic protege, "OMG, yes. He's so dependent on Jen for everything." And Genevieve, my sweet Genevieve, ever the voice of reason. "You guys are terrible, but also it would be hilarious." They had meticulously choreographed every humiliating detail, even formulating a contingency plan. If he somehow makes it home before us, he'll probably just call his mom or something. Big baby. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I sat there for a long time, the silence of the empty house deafening. Then I went upstairs, packed a single duffel bag, and left. I didn't leave a note. I didn't turn off the utilities. I just walked out, mirroring their dramatic exit. The difference, however, was profound. I wasn't coming back. My faithful truck, a symbol of my newfound independence, conveyed me to my brother Liam's minimalist bachelor pad in Colorado Springs. Liam, a night shift manufacturing plant worker, greeted my unannounced arrival and solitary duffel bag with the stoic wisdom of a sage, merely nodding and handing me a beer. "How long you stayin'?" he grunted. "Don't know yet." Liam, who possessed a remarkable aversion to Genevieve, though he never explicitly stated it, his strategically timed bathroom breaks during family gatherings spoke volumes, listened to my epic tale of betrayal without judgment. "Jesus, Arthur," he declared upon its conclusion, "you're better off without her." And thus my rehabilitation truly began. Monday morning, I executed another audacious act of self-reliance. I requested a transfer to a hospital renovation project in Colorado Springs. My boss, a man of few words and even fewer questions, agreed. My phone, however, became a relentless digital torturer. Genevieve. Her voicemails, a masterclass in feigned concern. "Arthur, where are you? I come home and you're just gone. That's not like you. Call me back. We need to talk about this." Not an ounce of remorse, merely vexation that her pawn had dared to move off the board. I blocked her number. An hour later, Beatrice called. Blocked. Then Clara. Blocked. But these were no ordinary women. They were master strategists, employing work phones, burner numbers, all carrying the same infuriating message. I was overreacting. It was just a joke. I needed to come home and work this out. Thursday, Liam returned home, a peculiar glint in his eye. "Your wife's here," he announced, as if informing me of a particularly persistent housefly. "She's sitting in her car outside." Genevieve, seeing me at the window, emerged from her sedan like a dramatic actress making her grand entrance. I met her in the lobby, effectively intercepting her nefarious plan to sully Liam's doorstep. "Arthur, thank God," she exclaimed, reaching for me with the desperate fervor of a drowning woman. I sidestepped her. "What do you want, Genevieve?" "I want you to come home. I want us to talk about this like adults." "Talk about what? How you abandoned me 200 miles from home? How you and your sisters planned it for months?" Her face contorted. The concerned wife mask slipped, revealing a flash of sheer irritation. "It was a prank, Arthur. You're acting like we committed a crime. You left me stranded. You laughed about it. You planned it for months." "Because you needed it," she snarled, the true motivation finally unmasked. "You're so dependent, so clingy. We thought if you had to figure something out on your own for once, maybe you'd grow up a little." The lobby's fluorescent hummed, seemingly judging her pronouncement. I stared at this woman, my wife of 8 years. A stranger revealed. "I'm not coming home," I declared. "Don't be ridiculous. You can't just disappear because your feelings got hurt." "Watch me." I turned, heading for the elevator, leaving her to sputter promises, threats, and nonsensical explanations to the rapidly closing doors. 3 weeks later, I was a man reborn. My days were filled with productive labor at the hospital site. My evenings, a joyous communion with rusty metal as I embarked on a new passion, restoring vintage motorcycles. Each polished chrome piece was a testament to my newfound independence, a glorious middle finger to my past. I found a modest apartment on the south side of Colorado Springs. No committee meetings about paint colors. For the first time in years, I tasted the sweet nectar of self-actualization. Then my mother called. "Arthur, honey, Genevieve came by the house." I'd been strategically avoiding my parents, unprepared to explain my marital emancipation. Genevieve, however, was clearly not burdened by such delicacy. "What did she tell you?" I asked. "She said you're having some kind of breakdown, that you disappeared after a family trip and won't answer her calls." I could almost hear the worried wrinkles forming on my mother's forehead. Mom, bless her heart, had always liked Genevieve, deeming her stable and responsible. "It's not a breakdown, Mom. We're having problems." "What kind of problems that can't be worked out?" I sidestepped the details, explaining Operation Unplugged and the months of subtle emotional torture would sound terribly petty. like I was overreacting to a harmless joke. But as I hung up, a realization dawned. Genevieve was still orchestrating the narrative, still controlling the perception, painting me as the unstable villain who'd abandoned his marriage over nothing. That weekend, I made a pilgrimage back to Crestwood, not to my former marital prison, but to my buddy Finn's place. "Heard you and Genevieve split up," Finn said, his voice laced with the appropriate amount of sympathetic regret. "Sorry, man." "What did you hear?" "Just that you took off after some fight. She seemed pretty torn up about it." Genevieve's well-rehearsed version. Finn, ever the gentleman, offered me a beer, and we sat on his porch. I spun him the full, unvarnished epic. "That's messed up," he declared when I finished. "Why would she do something like that?" "I think she wanted me gone," I confessed. "Not permanently, but I think she derived immense pleasure from having the power to inflict pain, to demonstrate my utter insignificance." Finn was quiet for a while. Then a sudden spark ignited in his eyes. "You know what? I remember something about your wedding." I shook my head, intrigued. "During the reception, you were talking to some of my crew guys, just normal conversation. But every time you'd laugh or seem to be enjoying yourself, Genevieve would materialize like a marital specter and interrupt, finding some urgent reason you needed to be elsewhere." I remembered that now, her constant recalls from conversations, her insistent whispers about thanking relatives or posing for photos. I'd attributed it to her being a stellar hostess. "Perhaps," Finn mused, "or perhaps she simply resented seeing you happy without her direct supervision." That night, I drove past our old house. Her car was in the driveway, lights blazing in the living room, her shadow flitting about. I didn't stop, didn't even slow down. But seeing that house, remembering the life I'd meticulously constructed there, sparked a profound realization. I wasn't merely fleeing a bad marriage. I was launching myself headfirst into something undeniably better. My business management courses, far from being mere academic exercises, proved to be an unexpected blueprint for success. 6 months later, I launched my own company, Sterling Structures. Small jobs at first, naturally, bathroom renovations, deck repairs, but the work flowed steadily, and customers, bless their discerning hearts, truly appreciated someone who showed up on time and delivered on his promises. Liam, my steadfast brother, became my very first employee. Then Finn, lured by the siren song of honest work and principled management, joined us when word spread that we were, in fact, honest contractors who possessed the antiquated notion of not cutting corners. I even purchased a small house on the west side of Colorado Springs. Nothing ostentatious, but it boasted a garage for my tools and a yard where I could tinker with my beloved vintage motorcycles. No shared decisions, no lengthy committee meetings about paint colors. For the first time in years, I was the sole sovereign of my domestic domain. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I encountered Finn at the hardware store amidst a glorious tableau of nuts and bolts. "You hear about Genevieve?" he casually inquired. "Genevieve?" The name resonated with the faint echo of a long-forgotten bad dream. "What about her?" "Divorced again. Married some poor chap from her work 6 months after your divorce. Lasted about a year." I picked up the screws I'd come for, a man utterly unburdened by past attachments. Don't you want to know what transpired? Finn called after me. Not really, I replied, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Genevieve and her sisters, in a rather poetic turn of karmic events, eventually face the natural consequences of their own spectacular foolishness. Beatrice, the architect of Operation Unplugged, lost her esteemed marketing job after her relentless harassment of me created rather significant liability issues for her company. Clara's valiant attempts to disseminate false narratives about my supposed breakdown spectacularly backfired when mutual friends, bless their inquisitive souls, compared notes and realized she was, in fact, an unreliable narrator. Genevieve's rather hasty second marriage and its subsequent, equally swift dissolution irrevocably tarnished her reputation in our old social circle, leaving her increasingly isolated from the very people whose approval she had so desperately craved. Some lessons, I concluded, can only be learned the hard way, preferably 200 miles from home by oneself. Hey viewers, welcome to the channel. We're just getting started and your support means a lot. If you enjoy these stories, please consider subscribing and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for being here.